There you go, Matthew. Good work, buddy. I guess the secret to the mic is to do some voodoo over it before you get it. Good to see everybody. I'm Tom Ivester, an alcoholic. I want to welcome everybody to the primary purpose group, particularly welcome family members who are here. That's an awfully important part of recovery, is to have that family pulling together. And so it's just great to see everybody here. Sure hope you'll feel welcome. We've got plenty of bathrooms and coffee, so the mix will work out okay. If you got to go, you got to go. Now, just haven't known my speaker very long, only a little over 40 years. And he's about got over being a Yankee now. He's now look what you did, Matthew. You made the book fall, Matthew. Let me tell you how we met, and to tell you a little bit about who he is, and you'll know who's breaking loose on you. I was living up in Raleigh and was doing a good bit of work with the group over at Central Prison in Raleigh. And the way it had been working, some of the local members in Raleigh would come over monthly and have speaker meetings. But the energy ran out somewhere along the line. They started getting a little bit sagging in the saddle and then disappearing in the saddle. And that makes for a lousy meeting. So we started looking for people who would make a commitment. I don't mean make a visit. I'm talking about making a commitment to be at a given place at a given time on a regular basis. And so we started looking on an ever-widening circle and wound up in Greensboro. And we got in touch with, what was it, half a dozen guys? Yeah, half a dozen guys that made a commitment that lasted for many years, where once a week could come down. And I was thinking about it, the way this room is set up is not remarkably unlike the way it was set up at the prison. When you look at it, you see we had tables that weren't as pretty as these, but tables out would put anywhere from 10 to 12 people, no more, at a table. And then put one of the lucky outsiders at that table. You had an outside leader and an inside leader. So we had co-pilots going at it. And that went on for many years, and an awful lot of good stuff came out of it. And Dick was one of the early participants in that, and did it for many, many years. And so he's a guy that I got to know very well, not by just how he acted and how he talked, but of how he lived and what he did to carry this message. And that's a powerful kind of a thing. He is my good friend. Oh, by the way, I want you to, he's not sure of his wife's name, so I'm going to tell you what her name is, so Dick will be sure to get it right. Her name is Barbara. You hear that? Barbara. Barbara, stand up here, just will you? Come on now, get up. Get up, Barbara. Come on, Barbara. Go, girl. Are you don't have to speak, just stand up.
I don't want to stand up because my knees are just bad for it.
I'm standing up. You're not standing up. You're cheating on me. Yeah. Dick, you have to put up with that all the time? Holy mackerel. You poor guy. Anyway, this is my good friend, Dick, from Indian Trail, North Carolina. Go get it, brother.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Dick Wright. I'm an alcoholic. Good to see you all here tonight. It is good to see family members and everybody here. This is a good place to be on a Thursday night. This is a good place to be anytime. That thing echoing or is it in my ears? My wife's name is Barbara. I remember it. We've been an item for 57 years, as a matter of fact. A legal item for 57 years. Been a long time. I'm a member of the Indian Trail group of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you don't know where Indian Trail is, it's just outside of Charlotte a little ways. There's no way to get there from here, no way to get here from there. But I got here anyway. I've been here before. It's good to see, good to be with Tom and Fern, and good to see Wallace and some of the others that I've known for a long time. It's good to be in an AA meeting, good to be able to share a little bit of my experience, strength, and hope with you people. To tell you that we're privileged to be a part of a strong program that yanks people like me from the threshold of death and insanity and turns them around and lets them live a reasonably productive and normal life. Most people that are like me, an alcoholic, and like you, if you're an alcoholic, live out there, drink out there, and die out there, and never know there's a solution. But I'm one of the lucky ones, or fortunate ones, like probably you are, that was given the chance to be exposed to the solution. And I took an interest in it, a serious interest in it right from the beginning, and it's worked successfully for me from then on. I get some statistics out of the way. Barbara thought that Tom was older than I was. I got news for him. He's forgotten that I'm older than he is. Okay? I was born on August 19th, 1930. So if you don't know how old Tom is, and you can do a little math, okay, I was 68 my last birthday. You're supposed to laugh when I say that. I know when there's laughter. You want me to have a cue sign up here? And I took my last drink on October 17th, 1965, and because this program has worked and continues to work, I'm able to carry a 47-year chip in my pocket legitimately. I've been married to the same woman for 57 years. About all you need to know about me. I'm a member of an Indian Trail group in good standing. I not only attend that group, I attend others in the area frequently. The program worked for me in the beginning, still works for me today. I still need to be with you people. I still need to listen today. I still need what you tell me, things that I either haven't heard or may have heard and have gotten a little old, or I've forgotten them. I need to hear those. I love the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love to be with you people. It's the best time of my day. When I pull in the parking lot of a meeting, I am a better man because I'm in the presence of you people. Soon I'm going to be in close presence with you, and I feel good when I'm with you. There's tremendous power for me in the program, in the fellowship. It influenced me in the very beginning. Still influences me today, positively. A very quick story about what it was like. I'm not a native of North Carolina. I was born and raised on a farm in upstate New York in what's known as the Finger Lakes region in between Syracuse and Rochester. And if you know when I was born, you'll know that I was raised during the Depression years, and so that tells you about all you need to know about those years when I learned about life. And in the Depression, in a conservative, thrifty, farming atmosphere made up of mostly farming people who were good people, who had good standards, good code of conduct, good ideas, good work ethic, all of those things. So I had a chance to, an opportunity to learn all those things as a youngster. That's how I grew up. That's where I was formed and raised. If you look down, our farm was up on a little hill, looked over a little village. The village name is Fosterville. That doesn't make any difference to most of you people, but you kind of get a picture of it, a pastoral setting, if you will, because there were farms and there were barns and there were silos, and there was a church steeple above all of those where most everyone went to church, and we gathered there obviously for church purposes and for social purposes and other purposes. A one-room schoolhouse where I went for the first 6 grades, right down near where I lived. And that's where I was raised. Now, my father was a strong disciplinarian, and in that kind of setting, I learned to be guided by the influence of a strong disciplinarian father and the culture that I was growing up in. And as long as I adhered to those ideas and standards as I look back, I didn't have any trouble in life. Life went well. Now there's a book here called Alcoholics Anonymous. I hope you, if you're an alcoholic, I hope you got one and that you use it. If you know an alcoholic, I hope you get one and you use it too, okay? Because there's a lot of vital information for me in there, maybe for you. But it says in there, it tells in there exactly what happened to me when I was about 12 or 13 years old, something like that. It says I developed self-will. Didn't know what it was. See, I was guided by other people's will all these years, and it went well. But I developed self-will. And it makes a statement in there. Bill Wilson makes a statement in there. He says, any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Because in that condition, I'm almost always in conflict. And my life at that age started to be influenced by self-will. And I started to be in conflict. And I started to have trouble getting along. I had trouble getting along with my dad. I had trouble getting along with school people, bus drivers, all of those folks that my life touched. Now, Dr. Silkworth, in the doctor's opinion, also in that book, uses 3 words to describe the alcoholic personality: restless, irritable, and discontented. I don't know of any 3 words that better describe how, as an alcoholic, I began to feel. Because of the conflict, because of the self-will, I didn't know it. And so I went on into life, restless, irritable, and discontent, governed by a newfound self-will, and continued to have the same difficulties that I had trouble getting along. No, I wasn't a bad boy. I didn't have any real legal problems. I was a mischievous boy. I like to create attention and things of that nature. And I began to have trouble getting along. Now, when I was in my teens, somewhere late teens, I was hanging around with some guys a little bit older than I was. And there was a drive-in theater up on the main highway called the Finger Lakes Drive-In. Had loudspeakers up on the screen. And we'd go up there in the summer nights after we'd finished a hard day's work, and we'd sit down on a piece of adjacent land and watch the movies. And we sit down in the weeds up against an old fallen down apple tree. And we're walking up there one night, and these guys stopped in a place called the Rainbow Inn. And they got something to drink, took it up there with them. I didn't know what it was, but I saw them drink it, and I saw them begin to have a better time. I saw their personality change. I saw things were going better with them. And I thought to myself, I guess I filed that away, that maybe I ought to try some of that stuff. So I started to save a little money. And I put together 86 cents. And one night I stopped in there with them, and I bought a quart of Roma port wine. And I pulled my t-shirt outside of my overalls, and I tucked that down inside of my belt, and pulled my t-shirt out over, walked up to the drive-in, sat down against that old fallen down apple tree, restless, irritable, and discontent, worked hard all day, sweated, smelled cow manure, chicken manure, horse manure, gathered eggs, fed pigs. Didn't like any of it. Restless, irritable, and discontent. I took the top off of that quarter room of port wine, and I started to drink it. And guess what happened? I got feeling better. That stuff did a job on me. In fact, it did such a good job that I drank the whole thing. Now, I don't have to tell you that I had a bad night. Okay, it was a bad night. Did some things that aren't good. I rolled around in the weeds, in the dirt. I puked a lot. I wet my pants. I hadn't done that in a while. I'd quit doing that. These guys carried me on home into that old farmhouse, and they put me up there in the bed where I had an upstairs bedroom, and the old springs we jumped on them. I didn't have inner springs in the springs, and it went in the middle. Once you got in it, you were in the middle of it. and you stayed there for the night. And so they put me in that bed, and I went down the middle, and I stayed there the rest of the night. Well, those things had been going on, kept on going on all night long. So it was a terrible situation in the morning. My mother was sad, and my father was mad, and my sister was bewildered. And I had to try to work my way out of that mess that I'd created. And I finally did. Finally worked my way out of it. But I forgot all that trouble that I had. I forgot rolling around in the weeds. I forgot puking. I forgot wetting my pants. I forgot what went on all night long in the middle of that bed. But I did remember something. I remembered that after I started drinking that stuff, after about 15 minutes or so, you know how long it takes, my life got better. I was no longer restless. I was no longer irritable. I was no longer discontented. I was funnier. I felt better with these guys. Did hard work and the sweat and the dust and the cow manure and the eggs and the chickens and didn't seem to bother me quite as much. I could dream about how good it was going to be when I got out of there. All those things as a result of the effects of alcohol on this system of mine. I remembered that, and I took it on into life with me. Selfish, self-centered, run by self-will, in conflict, restless, irritable, and discontent, had found something that worked, that made me feel better. That's a bad combination. I went on through high school with that information, on through college, almost graduated, enlisted in the Air Force in early January 1951 to keep from being drafted. Eventually got in a pilot training program, got my commission, got my wings during the tail end of the Korean War and the Cold War, and did some flying in the Strategic Air Command, but it looked good on paper. Met Barbara in Tampa, Florida, and the first day of the World Series, 1953. Remember that. So does she. It was in a bar. I got drunk. Got in a fight. You know, those things that restless, irritable, and discontented people do. But anyway, she let me come see her the next day or something, I don't know. But anyway, that's been going on ever since. But anyway, things on the surface, if you look, things were going pretty well. Okay, things are going pretty good. And there was a little bit of glory in it. There's a little bit of polish and spit and shine and those kind of things, and some good times. But just underneath, there hadn't been much of a change, because I'm still governed by strong self-will. I'm still restless, irritable, and discontent because of conflicts, and I still know something about what will make me feel better. And I kept returning to it all the time. Now, I was able to manage that for a little while, reasonably well. There were some incidents that I wasn't too successful. But man, folks, if you're alcoholic like me, you get good at fixing things up. You got to be a good fixer-upper, and you learn how to fix things up. And I got pretty good at fixing things up. And I'd get them fixed up, and they'd kind of go away, and we'd do it again. I reached a line, and we hear about it, that invisible line. I don't know what it was, and I'm sure what the circumstances were, but it seems like one day I was able to do what I was supposed to do, be where I was supposed to be, say what I was supposed to say, not say what I shouldn't say, not do what I shouldn't do. And the next day, couldn't do any of those things. Next day, I couldn't be where I was supposed to be, couldn't do what I was supposed to do, couldn't say what I was supposed to say. And that kind of perpetuated itself. I was hospitalized for the first time on the 9th of April, 1961 in Base Hospital in Ramey Air Force Base in Puerto Rico. And My first hospitalization was for acute gastritis. Now, if you drank the way I drank, you'll have acute gastritis. Okay, so that wasn't a misnomer. That wasn't a poor diagnosis. I had it. But let me tell you where they put me the first time. Put me in a padded room. Normal people with acute gastritis don't end up in a padded room. Now, if you come to in one of these rooms, like I did, and you look around and there's no doorknob on the inside the door, if you're quick, you can figure out this isn't going to be a good day. Not going to be a good day. Not only, there's a little bitty, see the glass in these doors? Well, about a third of that or less was in the door. And wire mesh over it so it wouldn't break. And they'd look in there at you. You know, you see a face there looking in at you. See how you were doing. You look over in the corner and there's a toilet over there. And this one's like all other toilets except for one thing, doesn't have a handle on it. Because they don't trust you to flush your own toilet in there. Got to have help with that. So when you use the toilet, you know, you look in the window to see if they're looking in at you, and they are, and you wave at them like this, and point to the toilet. And they flush it from out in the hall. Now, if you're quick and you pick up on that, you might detect that that's under manageability, that your life is not manageable under those circumstances. But I didn't pick up on that. For the next 39 weeks, I was locked up somewhere like that in a similar situation for 19 of those 39 weeks. Okay, 51 years ago tonight, I was sitting in the solitary confinement section of the base stockade on Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska, for two reasons. Because when I drank, I couldn't predict, and I always got in trouble. And when I shouldn't drink, I couldn't stop. Couldn't drink successfully, couldn't quit successfully. My life was in shambles. I hate to tell you what I put my wife and two little girls through. It's amazing as I look back on it, what they went through for that period of time when I was unfit to be a husband or a father and incapable of taking care of them, and somebody else had to. On the 27th of December 1961, as a result of a general board of officers that had met to determine whether I ought to stay on active duty, I was thrown out of the Air Force with a general discharge. And the reason, according to this board of officers, was alcoholism, acute, chronic, and severe. That's a bad case. You know, for those of you that are just routine, regular, run-of-the-mill alcoholics, see, I'm worse. And what makes it worse is I got it in writing. Let me tell you, the military, they copy everything. They give you a copy. They'll make sure you got it. So I came, Barbara and the girls had been back with my mother for about a month and a half or 2 months, I guess, and I came back there, did what all good 31-year-old married father without a job ought to do. Moved in with my mother. That's what we do, alcoholics. Tried to put my life back together. Now the third chapter, first paragraph of the book, more about alcoholism in that chapter, talks about me there. It says, because I was unwilling to admit that I was different, because I was unwilling to admit that I was alcoholic, there would be countless vain attempts to prove that I could drink like other people. And there were. Folks, I had absolutely no business thinking about taking a drink, let alone taking one. I had all sorts of written evidence that the last year had been filled with episodes, serious episodes, with military overtones that I shouldn't even think about taking a drink. But I didn't think I was alcoholic. I wouldn't admit that I was. I had it in writing. So there would be countless vain attempts to prove that I could drink like other people in the world. Got back on my feet. You know, we fixed things up, got things fixed up, got back on my feet, got Went in a vocation, didn't have a very good, my resume looked terrible. It wasn't, I didn't have one, as a matter of fact. Had an industrial arts education, almost 11 years in the military, general discharge. Got nothing really going for me. Well, I got a job in the insurance industry and I worked in it the rest of my life. Came to Greensboro, North Carolina, got promoted, 1964. Moved to Greensboro with Barbara and the girls and with this company I was with, and not convinced. Just like it says in the first paragraph, chapter 3, not convinced that I was different. And there had been countless vain attempts. So there were more. Now, I'm not talking about drinking one night, having a hangover, and finally quitting, the next day. I'm talking about vain attempts where I almost lost it. Almost got out of hand. Let me tell you, folks, I drank a lot, and I drank alcoholically. You never saw me going around with a mixed drink with fruit in it, with a stirring stick, with an umbrella. Never saw me with one of those. You saw me with a glass of whiskey, a little bit of water, if I was lucky. A cigarette would do in a pinch. On the 11th of October 1965, I stopped at a place called The Mug in the Lawndale Shopping Center, Tom, after work for a beer, Monday night. Innocent enough for a fellow like me, you hadn't had a drink in a little while. Just gonna have a beer. Inconsequential. Had forgotten all those things that I had in writing, all of those debacles of my life, all the embarrassment, all the trouble. Gonna have a beer Friday or Monday night. Now, Sunday morning, I hadn't been back to work, hadn't shaved, hadn't bathed, drinking around the clock. Drink, get drunk, pass out, come to, drink, get drunk, pass out. I was sitting in the corner of the living room that Sunday morning in my underwear. Now, Bill C. from Greensboro and I had the same problem. We end up in our underwear under those conditions, both of us. And I'll tell you, it's something that stays with me. If I have a drunk dream today, if I have a drunk dream now, and I have one once in a while, guess what? I'm away from you people. I don't know anybody. I'm in a crowd. I'm in my underwear. Don't know anybody. Can't find my clothes. Got nothing, nowhere to hide. I can't find anything to hide behind. That's how my dreams go. Well, I was that way that Sunday morning, sitting in the corner of the living room, drinking out of a quart of something. Don't know what. Scotch, I think, of some sort. Chasing it with Pall-Mall cigarettes, doing a little social drinking, not harming the soul. Don't know what happened that day. Something happened. It was a day like many others had been. Same things going on, same destruction, same hopelessness, same despair. 2 little girls, 8 and 6, next door because I was unfit to be around. That kind of stuff. Scared to death, don't have to come off of it. Don't have to face the people. Don't have to come up with some cockamamie idea while I wasn't there. Tough. Sitting there in that condition, and all of a sudden I think I saw that situation more clearly than I've ever seen it before. Although I'd been there many times. I saw it more clearly this time. Maybe as Bill says in his story, second hospitalization, when he says, no words can tell of the loneliness and despair I felt in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. Alcohol was my master. Maybe that kind of thing went through my mind. I don't know. But I can tell you this, something told me to give her the bottle and to try to do something. And I didn't know what to do, had no idea. And so after church was out, and then minister that I knew had a chance to get back to the parsonage, I called him and asked him if he'd come see me, and he did immediately. His name was Marion Workman. He was a pastor at Mount Pisgah United Methodist Church in Greensboro. Now retired, lives down in Pleasant Garden. He came and he sat across from me, and I told somebody for the first time what was going on. Truth. Never had told anybody the truth. Never told military psychiatrists, psychologists, commanders, fellow workers, family members. Never told them the truth. Told him the truth. And he looked at me with all the compassion that a man in his profession has, and understanding and love and concern. He says, I can't help you. He says, I know some people that can. Will you let me call him? I said, call him, and he did. He called a fellow by the name of Boyd Christopher. And Boyd had a running mate by the name of Wade Johnson. Both of them are gone now. And they came and they made a classic textbook 12-step call on this, in this hopeless, despairing situation. Two men who shared with me, and Marion Workman, who's still there, and Barbara, who's sitting there. Some people wonder if I'd got out of my underwear. Yes, by this time I was out of my underwear. Okay, I'd put clothes on. These two men told me about feelings that they felt and thoughts that they had thought and behavior that they had experienced, that I thought I was the only one that had thought, felt, and behaved that way. And I was sure these guys knew what they were talking about. I'd never talked to anybody, never listened to anybody like that before. I heard a lot of people say, this is what you must do. But I never heard anybody tell that kind of stuff. One of them hadn't had a drink in 9 years, and the other one in 5 years. I was pretty impressed. And I think what happened that afternoon was that I bought into this thing right then. Quick as that may seem. I think that morning sometime I had come to grips with the disease of alcoholism finally, as it pertained to me, that I was powerless over alcohol. And I think that afternoon I understood with these two men, I acknowledged the presence of a power greater than human power, as in the second step. And it was only a few hours had passed. That happened to Bill. Remember when Abby was sitting in Bill's kitchen, and Abby comes up with that profound statement that changed the world maybe for you and me. Why don't you choose your own conception of God, Bill? And Bill says, that statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had stood and shivered for years. Folks, I think that the message of these two men melted that icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had stood and shivered for years. Well, they took me to a meeting in Burlington that night in town, and I remember the meeting. I wasn't robust when I came through the door today. Hey, I can tell you that. I see folks come through here today whistling, singing, dancing, hugging, kissing, having a good time. I wasn't that way. I was not in good shape. I came to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I hadn't had a drink in 8 hours after drinking 6 days around the clock. You know what kind of shape I was in. I jerked when I sat down. I jerked when I stood up. I jerked when I stretched. Jerked when I was breathing. Bad shape. But I remember that meeting. I remember a couple, 3 things that were said. And I remember the serenity prayer. And I said, God, as I understand him, I'm going to have trouble with that. See, I'm getting smart already, figuring this thing out. Hadn't had a drink in 8 hours. I'm getting smart. I remember a little bit about what a guy from Danville, Virginia, who said in his story. I picked up a beginner's chip. I remember the firm handshakes I got afterwards and the expression on the face of you people that I met. And on the way back to Greensboro, Wade told me a couple things. One thing he told me, the personal thing, we're here around these tables and in this room all the time. I never had to drink again if I didn't want to. And I knew that. Instinctively, and incapable as I was of figuring it out, I knew that because of what I'd heard from these two men that afternoon and where I had been, where you people gathered to put those things together, that was a strong combination. If I drank again, it was by choice, and I hadn't had that choice. Now, another thing that Wade told me was, I asked him how many meetings I should go to. Now, folks, if you're new in the program, don't ask that question, okay? That's a bad question to ask. Because he told me 7 meetings a week would be enough. He didn't ask me about my social calendar, what nights I had free, if it'd be all right with my wife. Told me 7 meetings a week. And so I latched onto this thing and I hung with these guys and I began to hang with them during the day and I went to work as I was told to do, although I didn't feel like it. And I went to meetings at night and I began to like being with you people and I began to learn things. And I heard statements like, oh, Henry Group, the second night, 1 drink's too many and a barrel's not enough. And I thought, man, I wish I'd have thought of that. That's good. I hadn't thought of that before. 1 drink is too many and a barrel's not enough. And my life had been an emblem of that. 1's too many and a barrel's not enough. Amazing. I remember a guy got up to speak that night. His name was Bill McKeever. He was one of the guys that came to the prison Sunday after Sunday. He'd been on vacation for 2 weeks, had a full growth of beard. Big man, taller than me, bigger than me. He got up there and I said, this guy's going to tell me he's been sober. See, I'm getting smart already. And he had. And guess what convinced me that he knew what he was talking about? He talked about coming out of Sears mail order where he was the personnel director in the middle of August after work, opening his car door, land out across the front seat, open the glove compartment, taking a full pint of vodka. And you know, there isn't but that much space in the top of a full pint of vodka. It's so hot that when he cracks the top, it goes, and he drinks it. I said, this guy knows what he's talking about. I began to pick up on this stuff, and I've picked up on that stuff ever since. I got feeling real good with you people and being around you, and I started working steps like I was told, and I did the things that you told me to do, and all the things that are promised in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous have happened. The promises have come true. You know, old ideas have been replaced by new ones. Been reborn, the book says. That sounds kind of churchy. Sounds kind of churchy, but I have been. My life's been good. And I've been doing in Alcoholics Anonymous exactly what the program says that I should do, and you people told me I should do from the beginning. I went to a lot of meetings, and I began to listen, I began to learn. Now, let me tell you this, you know, folks, I didn't come in here with a lot of things going for me that I see people coming in here today with going for them. I didn't have a lot of that stuff. I see people come through the doors that got legal problems, financial problems, family problems, all sorts of stuff nipping at their butt and hanging over their head, and they're about to be out of everything. And I didn't have that. Let me tell you what I did have as I think back on it. I had failed one more time. I had tried to drink one more time. One more time I'd ended up in that condition unsuccessfully. One more time I had failed. And that was a great place. That was sufficient stuff going on inside my head so that I was willing to try anything. There was created in me a sense of urgency. I died to that old life. I really did. And I bought this thing hook, line, and sinker. And I didn't have all the other issues going on. And I hear people come in today that just say, well, I prayed to God to get me out of this and I'd try to do better. Or I had this impression of God or that impression of God. I didn't come with that. I had no impression of God. A month before I came through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, you'd come up to me and say, tell me a little bit about God. I'd have been flat on my feet, dead. I couldn't have said a word because I didn't have a clue. I had carried nothing away from that upbringing. I had carried nothing away from that little country church. I carried nothing away. Came here godless. I wasn't atheist, wasn't agnostic, I was a nothing. But because of the urgency and because of what I was seeing going on around me, I began to believe something. A fellow in Monroe the other night said he was kind of like me, didn't have anything going for him in this area. And so he kept watching new people. Here's what he said, and I love the statement. He said, I figured out that just underneath, something was going on. I love it. Just underneath, something was going on. That was enough for him to build on. That was kind of enough for me to build on. Something was going on. I see people come to Alcoholics Anonymous today and guys with one of their sponsees with them, they got a big book and they're going down the church hall into a Sunday school room and in there for half or a quarter of an hour, going through the big book, going through the 12 and 12. Didn't have anything like that back then, Tom. You came to meetings, you enjoyed the fellowship, you laughed, you heard somebody speak, tell a story, you picked up a little bit on it. Didn't learn anything about the step. Didn't learn anything about the program. Didn't learn anything about the book. I know something about the book today. Hope you do. You know when I began to learn about the book? 15 years sober. I was introduced to two guys, Joe McQueenie and Charlie Parmley, who did it. And I got a copy of their first tapes that they put out through one of these providential things that I'll tell you about sometime. For the first time ever, I began to study the book. For the first time ever, I've heard about the disease of alcoholism. For the first time ever, I heard about the physical allergy and why I couldn't drink successfully. And for the first time ever, I heard about the mental obsession, why I couldn't quit successfully. Didn't know that before. Knew instinctively, for some reason, that I couldn't drink successfully. The track record had showed I knew I couldn't quit successfully. That had been the same track record, bad. But I began to learn. I've been learning ever since. I hear people say today that we're in bad shape, got all these outside influences that are going to throw us off track and stuff. Let me tell you something, folks. You go to the groups I go to, and AA is stronger today than it's ever been. And I have high hopes that it'll certainly be available for my children, my children's children. Confident as well. Confident. Love it. I've cut back. I still go to 7 meetings a week. Why do I go? Because I love to be with you people? Yes. Why do I go? Because I feel good when I'm with you people? Yes. Why do I go? Because you make me feel good? Yes. Why else do I go? Because I can sit there and I can listen and I can hear and I hear somebody say something that I'd forgotten or that hadn't impacted me to the point that I needed it to impact me tonight or today. and I go away a better person. Go away with my tools sharper to practice the program tomorrow in my everyday life. Life's been good. Too little retired from business a long time ago. Been active in all facets of social life, AA, community, church, business, all those kind of things that we're told. God will constantly reveal more to us. It says in page 164, 2 conditions: if I ask in the morning what I can do for the alcoholic who still suffers, and 2, if my own house is in order. Is my house in order? I don't know, but I've been working a long time trying to get it in order and keep it in order. Great events will come to pass for you and countless others under one condition only: if your relationship with Him, capital H, is right, is correct, is good. Great events have occurred. Those little girls that were next door and weren't fit to be around me, I wasn't fit to be around. They're grown, educated, and in families of their own. We were talking during eating supper tonight, Fern and Tom and I, 6 grandchildren. Good family, good things going on. Friends galore. Just great. Now that general discharge, let me close by saying this. I had that thing filed secretly away in the desk drawer because you don't frame that. Don't frame it and hang it on the wall. Well, one of the guys that I sponsored, that I had been attending big book studies that I'd been doing, and he kept after me about that, and he said, I want you to do something about that. And I said, yeah, got several things going against me. The statute of limitations is run on it, and my record had been destroyed in a warehouse fire in St. Louis in the late 60s. And I don't believe I could do it. He said, he kept after me, badgered the heck out of me. It became a pain in the neck, to tell you the truth. And so I finally said, okay, I'll do it. So I went down to the VA and I got online and I did some things and I got some stuff together and I put together what material I had. And I made a plea to the Department of the Air Force to consider changing the terms and conditions of my DD-214. Those of you in the military people know what that is. From anything other than honorable to honorable. And I kept getting copies of correspondence between the Air Force and the FBI and the government agencies that were involved. And some time passed. Let me tell you who I gave the credit to. I gave the credit 100% to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You people, the power of this program, the change that was brought about in my life on October 17, 1965. Period. Didn't take any personal credit, didn't take any personal result of my own efforts and ambitions. You people. Everything. One day I got a big envelope of paper in the mail, and here's what they said. That they were glad to tell me that any reference on my DD-214 to anything other than honorable had been changed to honorable. And they were pleased to enclose a brand new, spanking new honorable discharge, which I do have framed, incidentally. And here's what they said, the reason that they did that. One statement: my contribution to the community. That's what I hope I can do every day. Stay sober, live by the strength of you people, the fellowship, guidance of a God of my understanding, and continue to make a contribution to the community. Thank you for letting me hopefully make a little contribution tonight. Tom, thank you for asking me to come to this group and speak with you.